Today, the Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Lee Zeldin cut dozens of environmental regulations, including decades-old rules on greenhouse gases and clean water. The agency also shuttered its environmental justice offices, which work to protect disadvantaged communities from the severe impacts of pollution. For tonight's interview, we're joined by Matthew Tejada, who worked at the EPA for multiple administrations and led the EPA's environmental justice efforts. Thanks so much for being with us. The administrator said today that this is the most consequential day of deregulation in American history. How do you read the impact of today's decisions?
I would agree with them. I think it is the most consequential day in deregulation because they are taking us back to the 1960s, from before the times when we had regulations that actually cleaned up our water, protect people from across our country from cancer-causing agents in our air, actually cleaning up legacy contamination sites that people have been living on top of for generations. They are taking us back to that time when we didn't have regulations. It is not about making government more efficient or more effective, and it's certainly not about making Americans healthier. It is about allowing polluting industries in this country to have their cake and both eat it too, by having absolutely unfettered ability to pour their pollution into our communities. And that's every community in the United States, not just black, brown communities, but white communities, suburban communities. This is going to affect everybody in the United States.
And Matthew, one of the announcements today said the agency is, quote, reconsidering the 2009 engagement finding. Help us understand what that means.
Yeah, that was the endangerment finding. That was the finding that basically unlocked the authorities of the Environmental Protection Agency and our federal government to start combating climate change. We have seen repeatedly how our climate is changing on a regular basis and having devastating consequences, not just in our country, but across the world. How it is causing hundreds of billions of dollars in damages every single year. They're taking us back to not even square one, to the one decision that allowed us to start to make the slightest progress that was then supercharged during the last administration through the Inflation Reduction Act and other regulatory progress that we made recently. It is taking us back in time, just like all these other decisions are taking us way back to an era when we were suffering from pollution in every part of this country.
And let me ask you now, finally, Matthew, about the environmental justice offices. Remind us about, define environmental justice for us and what you think will now happen as a result of these policies.
So environmental justice has worked for decades to make sure that every part of our country, especially those parts of our country that have not had the power to keep pollution out of their community and to bring in the positives of a clean environment, of green space, of natural resources. Those are black and brown communities. Those are indigenous communities. Those are low-income white communities. Those communities that have not had a power to actually be protected from environmental pollution. The environmental justice program at EPA worked every single day to make sure that those communities felt heard by their government and to bring their voices back into government to make it respond and serve those people too. And they are gutting that program today as we speak.